particle physics, and then kind of went into infrastructure engineering in this area, and then he switched to the cultural sphere and was working for the EPFL for a while in Switzerland as well, and he's now associate professor of new media art and informatics at the Art Academy of Rome. He's representing the consortium GAR, which is providing infrastructures for researchers in Italy, and I think he can explain a bit in more detail what he's exactly doing there.
Okay. Thanks, Britt, for the nice introduction. I'm really glad to be here. I thank Professor Gravinovic for inviting me. Basically, yeah. My institute, GAR, a few words, because in this field probably is not even mentioned, but basically it's the consortium between INFN, National Institute for Nuclear Physics, CNR, ENEA, and the CRUI for the universities. And it started supplying the physical network infrastructure mostly for particle physics 40 years ago, because they wanted to have their own infrastructure, their own fibers to transfer data between basically Bologna, Rome, etc., the university, and the main experiments around Europe and around the world through Amsterdam. So what we have and what is related to the presentation is this huge network, this huge infrastructure that is over there and can be used to transfer any kind of data. And the C in front of the title of the presentation comes from my physics background. C is in physics, well, speed of light. And in the infrastructure, basically data are transferred through light. And, well, it seemed appropriate for what I'm going to talk about. In my background, there was this experience, this wonderful experience in EPFL, where we set up a lab called Sim Lab, which was at the intersection. It was a stage laboratory at the intersection between basically technology, science, and performing arts. So we were collecting whether scientists who wanted to have a PhD in a creative field or vice versa, which was more common. So artists with a strong interest in whether electronics or something related to a more so-called technological field, even if the fields, I'm a little bit against this huge, strong separation between fields. But basically, they wanted to have a PhD. They were really committed to have a PhD in EPFL into a scientific field. And that was running between 2011, well, I was running that between 2011 and 2014. Then, due to several familiar things, when I came back in Rome, and I ended up at GAR. So basically, from that background, I started elaborating this new, let's say, or different paradigm, so mixing things together. And what happened was that with this high-speed network and a renowned theater director, namely Giorgio Barberio Corsetti, we decided to experiment a little bit something that could relate to what Riku told us. So telepresence, geographically distributed performances. And I'll try to cover basically most of the things. So why, when, what, where, how, and what's going on now. So the main reason was, everything started by accident. So it happened to me to know and have a long conversation about the concept of time in quantum physics with Giorgio Barberio Corsetti, who was, who is an experimental theater director. I mean, now since few weeks is the director of Rome Theaters. Yeah. And he is still, even if he's probably the same age as my father, is still like the boy in the picture. He really likes to put his hands onto new things. He has an extreme curiosity, so we really get along together quite well. And it was trying to, I mean, after this long conversation about the concept time and the fragmentation of let's say, reality on the point of view of a particle which moves at the speed of light, so time is perceived differently. So he really wanted to find a way to represent this into a real performance. And at that time, Professor Valente was the director of GAR, and he really wanted a case study that was not the usual nerdy, if you understand what I mean, case study, because I mean, in this field, usually things are less creative, less interesting for an audience that is, I mean, a little bit far from computing, usually. And it was really supportive for this idea of figuring out how to use the infrastructure that GAR had to support Corsetti's idea of performance. And we worked somehow, and the same thing happened when Professor Ruggeri took over from his direction. So I mean, this combined to the previous experience, both of GAR with this low latency software that is basically called Lola, and it is used to make telepresence lectures, mostly for musicians. I mean, it's focused on music, and my previous experience of SynLab, plus the attention that the first test show got from Fabrizio Grifasi, was the director, I mean, the responsible director, the artistic director of Roma Europa Festival, which is an interesting festival that I strongly suggest happening every year and growing, about basically performance and dance, I mean contemporary performance and dance, brought us the right background to start doing some work with, with a distributed performance. So the idea was, from one side, to me, it's important and it's interesting to challenge the creative side. So, I mean, the main idea behind SynLab was, what if I put some kind of glasses in front of a director, in front of choreographer, in front of the eyes of someone that used to look at the performing art world in a certain way, and if that glasses, the lenses, are basically made of technology that could shift a little bit his perception. So how this could change his way of doing what it usually does. And Giorgio was really, really available into doing this. And I'll show you a video where in Italian, where he will describe his perception. I mean, he was directing a performance that was happening in different locations. So, I mean, forcefully, it was connected remotely to other places. And this kind of fractalization of splitting a point of view of his way of directing was somehow one of the most interesting achievements for him. And the same thing for the actors. I mean, this is something that probably was coming also from Rico's presentation. I mean, having multiple locations, whether the actors are physical or digital, could probably bring the actor to overcome this physicality of the stage. And this is interesting as well. And from the technical side, I mean, the video operators, the responsible of the video operators was a friend of mine. After that, it was not anymore. I'm just kidding. But it was really, really nice because having this remote symbiosis with the director, because you have different operators everywhere that not always really perceive what usually the director shouts from one side. It's also a challenging thing. And, well, to me, the technology was probably, my main point of view was on how to do that. I mean, we promised to everyone to do, that we were able to convert the GAR network for this. But at the very beginning, I had no idea. I was really confident that it was possible, but I had no idea how to do that. So, I mean, having this push from a real performance, from a real deadline that was really close to transform a technology and empower a different field was really challenging and was really enriching from my side. So, well, those are the glasses that I was mentioning. I mean, that's the idea of the glasses that I have. So it was happening between 2015 and 2016. We basically realized some sort of small show. I mean, it was a closed show. And then we were invited from Fabrizio Grifasi to a complete show inside the Roma Europa Festival of 2016. And I mean, I tried to strip from the presentation most of the technical details, but some, I mean, you will be forced into some of the details. So before that, I would like to show what was the first achievement.
E apriamo una finestra molto importante sul futuro di questo paese.
The places where, I mean, the planetarium that is more or less in front.
Per la prima volta, proprio
Palazzo
grazie
Massimo,
alla rete
and
GAR,
the National
a questa
Accelerator
banda larga,
of Frascati,
avremo la possibilità di vedere uno spettacolo
which is
molto
visible. The detector is visible in the back, and the Colosseum,
luoghi.
and Crypta Balbi, which
Credo
is near
che
Teatro
la banda
Argentina.
larga non solo è uno strumento fisico, ma diventa anche, come dire, un indicatore di civiltà.
Unfortunately, everybody speaks
Leggero,
Italian.
leggero, come questo.
La rete GAR nasce fondamentalmente per condividere, per creare una comunità che scambia di informazioni, per creare un'attività di ricerca di tipo collaborativo.
Parte delle prove l'abbiamo passata dicendo: senti, mi ascolti, mi senti dall'altra parte, non ti sento, mi senti? E quindi è...
So this is what I was mentioning. I'll try to give you a clue. So that was the director, and I said we spent 90% of the time saying, "Oh, do you hear me? I hear you. I don't hear you." So that was the thing that I was mentioning before. So his way of directing, I mean, it was not directing people in the same space. It was directing people in the Colosseum, in the accelerator of Frascati, and in Crypta Balbi, plus the people that were with him. So
È proprio l'inizio della comunicazione.
it's the beginning of communication.
Per noi è stato abbastanza entusiasmante cominciare a sondare le possibilità di un rapporto con trasmissione a distanza e tra l'altro di trasformare questa potenzialità, questa possibilità in materiale poetico. Far questo con il GAR che unisce tra l'altro contemporaneamente dei luoghi così diversi come per esempio dei siti archeologici o luoghi della ricerca, in questo caso Frascati e il sincrotrone, per me era estremamente interessante.
Dimostrare quanto questi strumenti possono essere fondamentali per avvicinare il mondo della ricerca, il mondo dei fruitori di massa agli straordinari contenuti che il nostro patrimonio culturale possiede e che richiedono soltanto di essere elaborati.
La diretta, la non diretta, la compresenza, la presenza nel tempo ma non nello spazio, lo spazio altro che diventa lo stesso spazio, eccetera, sono entrati in gioco e hanno creato, diciamo, un'emozione, no?
Le tecnologie che oggi in qualche modo il GAR ha messo a disposizione renderanno possibili servizi, fruizioni dei beni culturali che nel passato era impossibile, ma è veramente impossibile.
Seriano, vedete, fa vedere la presentazione, vedete. Allora qua adesso devo mettere lo slide di...
Quello che vedrete stasera, che vedrete tra un po', è un esempio proprio di questa capacità di interconnessione che offre il GAR, la possibilità di far suonare in posti diversi, componenti diversi di una banda.
The music was live, but played from two different points.
Il momento più bello è stato quando tutto si è messo in moto. Tu vedevi che tutti quanti trovavano il loro posto, ognuno di noi diventava parte di qualcosa che non avevamo però ancora visto. Ho avuto una sensazione che era l'annullamento dello spazio e la nascita del tempo.
Sembra smarrito, poverino. Ecco a voi l'uomo moderno.
Mi son perso. D'un tratto sono finito in questa strada oscura, come se fossi sprofondato nel cuore della terra.
Osserviamo cosa fa. Sentiamo cosa dice il mio figlio esemplare.
Ha anche la possibilità di toccare, di avere a che fare con quello che è la nostra storia, cioè l'Europa, l'archeologia, i monumenti, l'arte. Tra l'altro per questo mi sono divertito a creare una specie di spettacolo allegorico, come si faceva nel Rinascimento, con dei personaggi che erano anche delle idee, dei concetti. Quando c'era una commissione.
Io conosco il tuo nome, ma voglio sentirlo dire da te.
Adesso mi metto a urlare, a cantare a squarciagola di fronte ai turisti. Di fronte a voi urlo che è finita!
Ehi, stai calma, non ti agitare, guarda che si può parlare anche pacatamente.
Io sono la furia. Adesso prendo le vesti della rabbia fredda, ragionata, strategica. Io sono il buio.
Okay. So, let's go back. Oops, sorry. Whatever. Okay, so basically, as I mentioned before, there was some kind of early approach. So the thing that you saw was the first experiment. And we made several choices that are more dictated from the time frame, the hurry. They were refined in a second phase. But to give you an idea of the thing that you saw, basically there were these 4 locations. One was the accelerator of Frascati, the Colosseum, Crypta Balbi, and the planetarium right in front of Palazzo Massimo. And overall, there were 3 projectors, 5 cameras, and of course some projection screen. But the thing that I'm most interested to tell you is there were 10 computers and 13 technical people, 6 from GAR, by the way, out of, I mean, to support basically 6 actors and musicians. And there was only one audience. There was only one place from where, one point of view from where to see the show itself. The thing was achieved for the technical people out there partially through streaming, so an L3 level of audio-video transmission, which is the one that is used by Lola, for instance. I mean, all in all, this is absolutely not suitable for small companies, and it does not scale at all. And also, as a side note, my director told me that it was not possible to involve 6 people for a 7-day replica of a show because it was not going to pay for that. So basically, the second turn, when Fabrizio Grifasi came to GAR to discuss together with Giorgio what could be an interesting angle to an interesting frame for the Rome Europa Festival, we decided to multiply a little bit the challenges and add a different point of view for the audience, which is kind of natural, but it was kind of difficult, I mean, given what we said about the technicians and the director. But the thing was approached more, let's say, how to say, scientifically. So basically we made a long field research of the technology available, and we tested almost everything. And what happened, I will show you the video in a moment, but basically with a bunch of people, we figure out that small boxes, that are boxes like this, have only 2 milliseconds delay in transmitting the signals, and they can reach 100 kilometers of optical fiber. They can illuminate 100 kilometer optical fibers. And this, I mean, the bet was that they could be coupled with the infrastructure. And they were possible to be coupled. This is the cabling. So basically, there were 4 yellow bricks, like I like to call them, in each place. And for the audio, we rely on the previous solution. I mean, I can understand that this could not mean that much to people that are not technical, but basically, I mean, to make you understand, the data are transmitted and encapsulated into boxes. And the more you encapsulate, the slower you move the data. So instead of finding another box to put all these audio-video signals inside and then figure out how to transmit super fast, we basically decided to get rid of the boxes and step down on the layer of the optical fibers and transmit light. Because, I mean, the special thing of GAR was that we control the optical fibers. We own them. We can do mostly what we want. Well, roughly. And the trick was to change the frequency of light, so not to interact with the data transfer of, also of Palazzo Massimo, because the infrastructure is the same. So the people who were continuing to work, and their computers were connected, but there was another lambda in technical terms that was running and transmitting all this data. And this allowed us to, well, these are a few numbers about the testings. What I would like to mention, apart of all the graphs, is, I mean, the image on the bottom right, the green dots are the GAR centers. So basically, I mean, from Rome, we can program the data to come out from any one of that dots. So we can connect any dots. And the delay to transfer the data basically is, I mean, between 3 and 5 milliseconds, which is not perceivable from the human eye. The bottleneck for low budget use is the camera. I mean, it's always the camera. The camera introduced, and we didn't consider at the very beginning, but then we realized that we needed super high speed frame rate cameras, which were used from Lola, actually, fortunately. So the camera, the normal camera, an HD camera, could add between 100 and 150 milliseconds of delay, which is absolutely perceivable. I mean, after 10, you can say that something is not in sync. By the way, as I said, this was the second test. It's a summary of what happened. And what was needed was also to cable some parts of the infrastructure. So real optical fibers were passed from here, from the planetarium, to connect to Palazzo Massimo infrastructure, actually, and then to there.
Quando abbiamo fatto la prima esperienza, cioè la nave Argo, io ho avuto chiaramente l'impressione che si era messo in moto qualcosa che il pubblico ha percepito.
I laboratori che sono stati svolti al GAR ha permesso soprattutto ai ragazzi di conoscere appunto quello che sta dietro a quello che poi solitamente è il prodotto finale, che è uno spettacolo.
What I forgot to mention is that basically, I mean, because we had more time, we were more structured, we involved also the university with Professor Valentina Valentini from La Sapienza, and she decided to involve all of her students. So the class of that year was on the work, on the stage. And so it kind of fertilized an entire ecosystem. So there were students studying this kind of thing, reflecting on this thing, I mean, philosophically, technically, and I mean, that was an interesting achievement, actually.
Però ne parliamo con voi, probabilmente voi trovate altro.
Noi possiamo andare. This is a show off of the scene.
È il contrabbasso che ti sta arrivando. Grossi problemi.
They'll try and convince you that you need to. Don't need to do the sense, it's not your day, yeah. E tu, Europa, di lì dove sei non puoi far nulla.
Che succede? Chi è che urla?
È la furia! È lì da voi! Fate attenzione!
Ovunque, Europa, veniamo da te, a falciare come in un campo di grano.
Se avete imparato da noi, avete già fallito.
So the most important result is this: it worked. It worked flawlessly, and it worked mostly unattended. So there were 0 guard technicians for 7 days replica. And we reduced also the number of computers, etc. So basically, we were one step forward towards an infrastructure that is like the network infrastructure for GAR. I mean, there is a supervision, but mostly the infrastructure is there and can be used. I mean, you can connect and use it. Connect 1, 2, 3 endpoints and theaters, given that the network reaches, or places. I mean, Rome is a wonderful place because there were some illuminated minds. One just reached us, Mirella, thanks for coming, who really pushed to connect the archaeological, the heritage sites of the city with these high-speed fibers. And one of the places is Cryptobalbi, which you saw in the previous video. So given that you have this kind of infrastructure, you can easily and transparently, from the technician point of view, use that thing to put together a geographically distributed performance. And as I was saying, it fertilized an entire ecosystem because this university and students were involved, and there were critics writing because it wasn't a festival, so it caught a lot of attentions, and so on and so forth. The video operator worked differently, so I mean, different points of view as well. And we presented also in a more geeky location, which was the GAR conference of 2016. It's time, yeah. Okay, so basically now we're focusing on an educational project called DARE, that is Dance Research, to transfer both the scientific concept and the technology, the available technology. So to make people that are in the field, the creative people, to know that there is some tool and they can use. It's primarily important, because if you don't know, I mean, you can only draw with a pencil if you know a pencil, but if you know that there is something else, you can try to experiment probably. I mean, that's what. Future, and I close with this. There are plenty of evolution from here. What I would really, really love to see is, since this Internet of something is a buzzword of now, I would like to see an Internet of theaters. So rethinking the theater, distributed as a network of interconnected location. So all toward the stage of Shakespeare could really be something physically declined into an infrastructure. And I mean, just for fun, we try to put a 3D live video. We already did, and well, it's working. It's basically 2 videos, and well, the other things are more technical. So the framing, etc., is more for technical people. And yeah, if it's time, otherwise I have a short video of comments.
I would rather take questions, I think.
Okay, better.
Thank you very much, Alex, for these very exciting insights into the use of technology in theater, but also into the further development of these important network infrastructures. I would like now also give you, the audience, the opportunity to ask questions, to make comments. Do we have a microphone?
Excuse me, I remember Tosca in the place of Tosca. It was such a very earlier experiment, because I remember something that director guided the singers in different places. So it was in Sant'Andrea delle Fratte, and in other place, because they did this in the place, real place of the Tosca opera.
Okay.
So I remember something. This very earlier than your experiment maybe. I don't know.
Well, Actually, I'm not aware of this in particular, but there were previous experiments, of course. The different thing is that in this case, basically, the thing happening in the location were really simultaneous. I mean, few milliseconds of delay of transmission is basically like, I mean, we can have a conversation, and the actors were improvising from one side to the remote one, which was amazing. The same thing for the musicians. I mean, the two musicians improvised for the overall performance, being one here in the planetarium and the other one in Frascati. So I think this is the main difference. I mean, the technology now is ready to allow you to basically connect the places, not like before. I mean, with a lot of delay. This is live. This is real-time live. Yeah, probably.
Any other questions? Yeah, Riku.
Thank you, Alex, for the very, very intriguing paper. Such fine works you've done. I'm amazed and very pleased that we're in the same line of business, sort of, with telepresence performance. This is not perhaps a question, but sort of a thought that we might elaborate on. You were talking about the actors overcoming physicality in the performance or in the performances, and I was just wondering whether embracing physicality even more would help us to overcome the digital, the body of the digital itself. We were talking about latencies. We recently did a show between Miami and in Florida and Tampere, and the latency was so big that we had to play this Rycooder type of guitar as music because it doesn't sort of it doesn't interrupt the flow of the performance, but the dialogue needs to be really slow back and forth with that latency. The latency to Lillehammer was 17 milliseconds. And again, that's doable with a slow dialogue, but not with a symphony orchestra, sort of. But isn't this something that we need to more concentrate on the physical performance itself to overcome the digital, rather? How would you react to this sort of line of thought?
That's somehow a never-ending, debate, and I partially agree. But my role in this case is to make people aware of a technology and to make it as transparent as possible to the creative people. And then it's their own job to decide if they want to stress the physicality and make the technology not work, which is something that we discussed in the process. I mean, we spent a long time together, so at some point there were some kind of problems in the music stream. Yeah. So the two musicians realized that they needed to play differently. So they absolutely didn't wait for each other, because otherwise the delay would mount and increase and destroy completely the performance itself. Yeah. So this kind of switches into the way of playing, the way of perceiving your activity is the thing that interests me.
Yeah.
And where I find technology interesting, not in the show-off of technology itself. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we need to talk about delays and milliseconds just because we are describing a technology, but it's not the technology itself that interests me.
Yeah, I can understand that. Thank you for the answer, because what we've done is we always want the actress on the other or the artists to break the technology.
Yeah,
we want them to take it to the limit with their physical performance. Yeah, so,
and to do that, they should basically have it like a glass, transparent. They should not worry about it. They just have to use it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, thank you.
So I have also a question for maybe both of you. You both kind of described this relationship, long-term relationship with actors, or like between artists and technological people who are maybe more even interested in developing technology than in implementing performing arts performance or something. What would you describe as the important preconditions or the success factors that need to be fulfilled for such a long-term cooperation to be fruitful? Like, I'm thinking also about, like, for example, if I went to my own institution, to the theater department, when would you think we could try to engage in such an endeavor, and when would you say, well, this is not going to work?
I would say one of the most important thing to me is to have, an ecosystem that is a mixed one. So if this thing comes only from technicians, it will never achieve anything, and vice versa. I mean, having a group of people really committed to achieve something new, to add this small bit to the knowledge, let's say, globally, is something important. I mean, what I figure out is that there is this multilateral fertilization of new ideas when you enlarge the discussion to people that do not belong to your field. And this is what was happening basically at the very beginning with Corsetti and his video maker and so on. And that's the same thing that we try to achieve in SynLab. So if you want to decline into something really concrete, I would say, first of all, some money to put together a good collaboration, and then a mixed background group of people.
I found this Tosca, and it's 1992, and it was live in 4 different places, and the orchestra director was in another place, and he directed all with the TV. So there was.
What's the name of the director? What's the name of the director?
No, here is not the name, but I think I can find.
Okay.
The director is, but I don't know who is the orchestra. The video, but the orchestra director. How do you say? The orchestra. So what is the name? We say director, il direttore d'orchestra.
The conductor? Okay.
He conducted from a different place, and in the hour, Saint-Angel Castle and Farnese Palace, and it was made in the same hour of the drama, of the opera.
Okay.
So in the same places.
I see.
It is very interesting because
it is.
An old area.
Yeah, an initial. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You are very young, so you can.
No, but we try to do our homework and we researched the previous experiments. But this one I didn't know. Thank you.
So Riku would like to add also.
Yeah, just to the question that you presented to both of us, I was hugely pleased and interested in the idea of IOTH, Internet of Theatre, and we should definitely keep our connections up for talking about that. And I'd like to contact you with our studio manager Matthias Palo, who's our telepresence wizard at Tampere University. So
that will be great.
And we're currently planning and doing infrastructure development for telepresence performance in our university. So I'd very much like to sort of get more information on GAR and how you're operating. So
that would be great.
So this is definitely something that we should be developing and getting the money for.
Yeah, that usually helps.
Yeah. So you can send in donations after the panel.
Okay, great. So, any donations or comments? Should we try another time with Matthew?
Thank you.